Check, 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 check. All praises. Hey, Shalom Israel. Most High in Christ bless. It's Captain Azariah, and we back with History in the AM. Hey, man, I'm finally at the school. I normally do it with the black background. All praises. IT team came through today. All praises. So we're going to get right into it. As many of y'all know, I'm going through the captivities. We're in the Persian captivity right now. This will be part 5. To bring yourself up to speed, go back and watch part 4. You can go all the way back to Assyrian to get yourself up to speed. But I'm going to do a quick recap, kind of where we're at in history, and then we'll get right into it. Because as y'all know, the Day of Nicanor is coming up, as well as the Feast of Purim, which Purim took place during the Persian captivity. So we're going to go through that history, and it lines up where we're at chronologically in the timeline of where we're at when it comes to the Persian captivity. So real quick, just to recap, the house was finished. Remember, we went through when we had the heathen coming against us, making secret plots, hindered the building, as well as the history that was taking place during the time of Judith. Then fast forward, you had Zerubbabel, as well as his uncle, Sheshbazzar, basically revamp and finish the temple, because you had Haggai and Zephaniah. The Spirit of the Lord came upon them to basically stir up the spirits of our forefathers to finish the building of the temple. So the temple was finished. When you get to Ezra 6, they kept a feast for it, and we were dwelling during that time. Now, when you get to Ezra chapter 7, verse 1, a lot of time has passed, but roughly 58 to 60 years has passed between that time frame from when the temple was finished to now when Ezra steps on the scene. And then about 10 years later, Nehemiah steps on the scene and finishes the wall of Jerusalem. So I want to start at Ezra chapter 7 and verse 1.
This is the book of Ezra, chapter 7 and verse 1.
Got a lot of reading. You ready?
Yes, sir.
All right, read.
Now after these things, in the reign of Artaxerxes, king of Persia, Ezra, the son of Sariah, the son of Azariah, the son of Hilkiah.
So now here you read, it says, now after these things, after what things? The temple being built, as well as there was a lot of things that took place historically. And to pinpoint in time where things go, before chapter 7, verse 1 is where you would put the history of Esther. Now, watch this. Reason why I say that. So right here you read, now after these things, in the reign of Artaxerxes, king of Persia, Ezra, the son of Sariah, the son of Azariah, the son of Hilkiah. So pull up that first article for me, please. Because now give me Esther 1 and 1. Esther 1 and 1. Similar to the Greek captivity, when we get to the Greek, Persia a lot of the kings had the same names. So like we read before, you read about Ahasuerus, you read about Xerxes, but they had different names throughout the history books and how they record, so you know who's who. But when you come to the Bible, you read Artaxerxes here in Ezra 7. You also read Artaxerxes in Esther 1 and 1, but they were two different kings. Y'all got that? It's just an article. It's the article. ITT, y'all need some coffee? Y'all good? I don't see it out here, though. He said, oh. Okay, so it is okay, all right, cool. All right, we see it now. All right, so this is Wikipedia. Read that top part.
So, list of monarchs of Persia.
So this is just a list of monarchs of Persia. Scroll down, though. Scroll down. We don't care about all that other stuff. I want to get to the point. Stop right there. So keep scrolling. Scroll. Stop there. So if you've been following the Persian captivity, we read about Cyrus, because remember, Persian and Mede, they were a two-pronged kingdom. You had the Persians and you had the Medians. So during the Cyrus was the Persian king, and then you had Darius, who, when you read in Daniel 5, was the Median king. But eventually, the Persians grew in power, and it became just a Persian captivity. We went over that, I think, in like part 1 or part 2 about Daniel 8, where it talks about the 2 horns, and the 1 horn was greater than the other. But scroll on now. Keep scrolling, keep scrolling. Cambyses II, and Gumatha, or roll back, scroll back up, 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 scroll. Keep scrolling. I'm talking. Cambyses II. I need y'all to pay attention as I'm speaking, because y'all would know where to stop. Cambyses II, and then you have Gomatha, which is also known as Bardia. You read about them. We read about them before in Ezra chapter 4. They were the 2 kings. Cambyses got killed in the book of Judith, and then his brother took over. That was during the time where they hindered the building. Scroll down. Scroll down. Then Darius came into power. That's who decreed that the building be finished, and that's where you read in Ezra 6 of the temple being finished. It was under King Darius. Scroll down. So now you get to, keep scrolling, Xerxes the Great and Artaxerxes right here. Scroll down. Artaxerxes the first. Scroll up a little bit right here, these 2. Okay. So now, Xerxes the Great. Read Esther 1 and 1.
This is the book of Esther, chapter 1 and verse 1. Now it came to pass in the days of Artaxerxes. This is Artaxerxes, which reigned from India even unto Ethiopia, over 127 provinces.
So right here in Esther 1 and 1, you read his name is Ahasuerus. Now watch this. Get Esther 11 in the Apocrypha. Esther 11 and verse 2.
This is the book of Esther in the Apocrypha, chapter 11 and verse 2. In the 2nd year of the reign of Artaxerxes the Great.
Artaxerxes the Great. Pull that back up. So this same Artaxerxes the Great, the same Ahasuerus you read in Esther 1 and 1, was Xerxes the Great, known as Xerxes the Great, who reigned during that time. Like when you read, the movie 300. The movie 300, that same Xerxes that had the mighty army and that they were going up against, this is that same Xerxes that you read about in Esther. In the Apocrypha, it calls him Artaxerxes, or for short, Xerxes. And then in the book of Esther, it reads Ahasuerus. Now, that Xerxes you're reading about in Ezra 7 and 1 was actually his son Artaxerxes later on the first. So now, go back to Esther where we was at Esther 11. Back to Esther 11. And verse 1 now. So now the book of Esther, the history of Esther, like I said, goes before Ezra, the 7th chapter. It took place in between chapter 6 and chapter 7 during that time period before Ezra came on the scene. Now, the book of Esther in the Apocrypha. Watch this. Chapter 11 and verse 1. Because similar to the book of Maccabees, the first book of Maccabees and the second book of Maccabees has the same history, just differently. The book of Esther in the Apocrypha and the book of Esther in the Old Testament is similar. And this is why. Because they reference it. It's the same history, just differently. The book of Esther, chapter 11, verse 1. Real quick. Watch this.
The book of Esther, chapter 11 and verse 1.
Because the book of Esther was actually took, the book of Esther and the Apocrypha, those writings took place during the Greek captivity as far as it being written and delivered. And we're going to touch that real briefly. Read that.
Chapter 11 and verse 1. In the 4th year of the reign of Ptolemaeus and Cleopatra, Dositheus, who said he was a priest and Levite, and Ptolemaeus, his son, brought this epistle of Purim, which they said was the same, and that Lysimachus, the son of Ptolemaeus, that was in Jerusalem, had interpreted.
So what you're reading in the Apocrypha, the book of Esther, because when you read the top, it says, many of y'all's Bible says the rest of the chapters of the book of Esther, which are found neither in the Hebrew nor in the Chaldee. it is an epistle of Purim. That's what the rest of Esther in the Apocrypha is. Because during the Greek captivity, matter of fact, pull up the next one. It says, in the 4th year of the reign of Ptolemy and Cassandra, Dosimaeus, who said he was a priest, Levite. It's telling you the time period that this epistle was delivered and interpreted. That's what the book of Esther in the Apocrypha is, the epistle of Purim. That's why a lot of it's abbreviated in regards to the book of Esther historically. It's more so touching on the acts and things that took place for Purim. So now watch this, just real quick. Ptolemy, on which Ptolemy this was. It says in the 4th year of the reign of Ptolemy and Cassandra, which we're going to touch on it when we get to the Greek captivity, but just so y'all understand what time, place, what time period this epistle was interpreted and delivered. Watch this. Give me that first or that next article on Ptolemy. So this Ptolemy right here is Ptolemy I'm terrible with the sixth, which is Philometor. Because you have, just like the Persian captivity and the Greek captivity, a lot of people had the same names. You had a lot of Antiochus, you had a lot of Ptolemies, you had a lot of Cleopatras. Same thing in the Persians. You had a lot of Xerxes, you had a lot of people, kings named Darius, Ahasuerus, things of that nature. So put that back up. So this was, read that.
This is Ptolemy the Sixth, Philometor.
Read.
Was a Greek king of Ptolemaic, Egypt, who reigned from 180 to 164 BC.
Scroll down some. I think there was something in here else that I wanted. Scroll down some. Yeah, read that next part. Ptolemy
the Sixth, the eldest son of King Ptolemy the Fifth and Queen Cleopatra the First.
Scroll down to where it says from 170 BC.
It's the same paragraph?
Yep. Yeah.
From 170 BC, his sister wife, Cleopatra the
You can
second,
look ahead. You can't see it right there? Oh, okay, go ahead.
Yeah. From 170 BC, his sister wife, Cleopatra the second, and his younger brother, Ptolemy the Eighth.
So you see right here, it says his sister wife, Cleopatra II, and his younger brother, Ptolemy, were co-rulers. That's why when you read in Esther, it says in the 4th year of the reign of Ptolemaeus and Cleopatra, because that not only was that his sister, that was his wife, and they co-reigned together. Give me that next one. Matter of fact, give me 2 Maccabees 4:21, just to show you. 2 Maccabees 4, verse 21. Second Maccabees 4 and 21.
This is the book of 2 Maccabees, chapter 4 and verse 21. Then it would have pitied a man to see the...
2 Maccabees 4 and 21.
Yes, sir, sorry. 2 Maccabees, chapter 4 and verse 21. Now when Apollonius, the son of Menesthius, was sent into Egypt for the coronation of King Ptolemaeus Philometor.
So this is that same Ptolemy that we're reading in the rest of Esther. This was when he was during his coronation, when he was being basically put into power, into rulership. All right, give me the next one. That next article, real quick. Just real quick. So we understand who we're reading in the rest of Esther. So that other one was Cleopatra II, Philometor. Remember, we just read that was the sister and wife. I'm telling you, Esau, they was vile and you want to talk about incest. They didn't give a damn about none of that. This was his wife and sister. And they had kids. That's where the Cleopatra Thea that you read about in 2 Maccabees came from. But that Cleopatra read was Cleopatra II. Give me 1 Maccabees 10 and 1, and then jump down to 58. Real quick.
The book of 1 Maccabees, chapter 10 and verse 1. In the 160th year, Alexander, the son of Antiochus, surnamed Epiphanes, went up and took Ptolemais, for the people had received him, by means whereof he reigned there.
So this is that same Ptolemy Philometor. Jump down to and that Alexander is Alexander Belias. It's not Alexander the Greek. He's dead already. This is Alexander Belias, which we'll get into all that once we get to the Greek captivity. the point of this is to show you who you're reading about in the rest of Esther. Jump down to verse 58.
Verse 58, 1 Maccabees chapter 10 and verse 58. Where King Alexander meeting him gave unto him his daughter, Cleopatra.
So Cleopatra here is Cleopatra Thea. That is the daughter of Ptolemy VI and Cleopatra II, his sister wife. So drop that, go back to the rest of Esther, verse 11 and verse 1 again.
The rest of the chapters of the book of Esther, chapter 11 and verse 1. In the 4th year of the reign of Ptolemy and Cleopatra, Dositheus, who said he was a priest and Levite, and Ptolemy is his son.
So you had Dositheus, who said he was a priest and Levite, and Ptolemy his son. Because remember, during the time of the Maccabees, you had a lot of people putting themselves up, paying for the priest hood, putting themselves wicked men, like you read in 2 Maccabees 4 with Jason and things of that nature. So read on.
And Ptolemy his son brought this epistle of Purim, which they said was the same, and that Lysimachus, the son of Ptolemy, that was in Jerusalem, had interpreted it.
So that Lysimachus, give me 2 Maccabees 4 and 29, because he's the one that interpreted this epistle of Purim. 2 Maccabees 4, verse 29.
The book of 2 Maccabees, chapter 4 and verse 29. Now Menelaus left his brother Lysimachus in his stead.
So this is that same Lysimachus that we're reading in the rest of Esther. Read on.
Now Menelaus left his brother Lysimachus in his stead in the priesthood. And Sostratus left Crates, who was governor of the Cyprians.
So now let's go. So now that we're through that, let's go back to Esther chapter 11. Read verse 1 again, and then we're going to continue. So, just so you know, the rest of Esther was interpreted during the Greek captivity, and it was called the Epistle of Purim. And so that's where that fits. But it goes into detail in certain things that took place during the history of Purim and the Persian captivity. So now, go back, rest of Esther chapter 11.
The rest of Esther in the book of the Apocrypha, chapter 11, verse 1. In the 4th year of the reign of Ptolemy and Cleopatra, Dositheus, who said he was a priest and Levite, and Ptolemy his son, brought this epistle of Purim, which they said was the same, and that Lysimachus, the son of Ptolemy, that was in Jerusalem, had interpreted it. Verse 2. In the 2nd year of the reign of Artaxerxes the Great.
So now this was what was interpreted. It says in the 2nd year of the reign of Artaxerxes the Great. So we just read in Esther, I believe it was Esther 1. Hold on, let me look at it. No, we didn't read it yet. But when you start in Esther 1, which we're going to read it, in the 3rd year of Xerxes' reign is when chapter 1 started. Here in the rest of Esther, this is going into the 2nd year of what took place. So read on.
Verse 2. In the 2nd year of the reign of Artaxerxes the Great, in the 1st day of the month Nisan, Mordecai, the son of Jairus, the son of Simei, the son of Sisai of the tribe of Benjamin, had a dream.
So Mordecai had a dream during the 2nd year of the reign of Xerxes. He had a dream. Watch this. This was his dream was.
Verse 3. Who was a Jew and dwelt in the city of Susa, a great man, being a servitor in the king's court. He was also one of the captives, which Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, carried from Jerusalem with Jeconiah, king of Judea.
So now, if you've been following, this Jeconiah right here this is the Greek version of Jeconiah. But remember, his name was changed to Jehoiachin. So right here is showing you that Mordecai also was carried captive into Babylon during that 2nd wave. Because remember, you had Jehoiakim, which was Jehoiachin's father. He was carried captive into Babylon. Then his son was put in stead whenever he was carried captive, whose name was changed to Jehoiachin. And this was when Mordecai, when you read 2nd Chronicles, matter of fact, let's get it real quick. 2nd Chronicles, or 2nd Kings, I'm sorry. Real quick, 2nd Kings.
24.
Yes, 24, and I think it's like verse, I didn't write this one down. 24 verse. Yeah, start at verse 8 and then jump down just to get to the point.
The book of 2 Kings, chapter 24 and verse 8.
Matter of fact, verse 15.
Verse 15. And he carried away Jehoiachin to Babylon.
This Jehoiachin is Jeconiah or Jeconias. Remember, his name was changed because that's what the heathen did. They went through, even Jehoiakim, his name was changed because when you read in chapter 23, his name was Eliakim, and the king of Egypt changed his name to Jehoiakim. Same thing with Jehoiachin. They changed his name to Jehoiachin from Jeconiah or Jeconias. Read on.
And he carried away Jehoiachin to Babylon, and the king's mother, and the king's wives, and his officers, and the mighty of the land, those carried he into captivity from Jerusalem.
So Mordecai was also a part of this wave that went into Babylon. So now let's go back. Let's go back. Where was we at? Verse 5?
Yes, sir. Oh, no. Yes, sir. The end of verse 4.
Read verse 4 again.
He was the book of Esther in the Apocrypha, chapter 11, verse 4. He was also one of the captives, which Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, carried from Jerusalem with Jeconiah, king of Judea. And this was his dream. Behold, a noise of a tumult with thunder and earthquakes, and uproar in the land. And behold, two great dragons came forth ready to fight. And their cry was great. And at their cry, all nations were prepared to battle. And they might fight against the righteous people. And lo, a day of darkness and obscurity, tribulation and anguish, affliction and great uproar upon the earth. And the whole righteous nation was troubled,
Come on.
fearing their own evils, and were ready to perish. Then they cried unto God, and upon their cry, as it were from a little fountain, was made a great flood, even much water.
Even much water. Read on.
Verse 11. The light and the sun rose up, and the lowly were exalted, and devoured the glorious. Now when Mordecai, who had seen this dream, and what God had determined to do, was awake, he bare this dream in mind, and until night by all means was desirous to know it.
So he had this dream. Now, as we read on in history, the understanding of that dream is going to be made known through the events that happened. But he had a dream of what was supposed to take place during the history of Esther, as far as Haman and us trying to be destroyed. Haman wanting to destroy us. He had a dream in the second year. So now let's go to Esther 1. And we're going to jump back and forth between the book of Esther and Esther and the Apocrypha. Because, like I said, it's the same history. It's just the rest of Esther and the Apocrypha is the Epistle of Purim that was translated during the Greek captivity. So, Esther 1, read verse 1 again.
The book of Esther, chapter 1 and verse 1.
Come on.
Now it came to pass in the days of Artaxerxes. This is Artaxerxes which reigned from India even unto Ethiopia, over 107 and 20
So now watch
provinces.
this. Give me those maps. Because it said this Artaxerxes, which was Xerxes the Great through history, the same Xerxes that you see in the movie 300. It says he reigned from India even unto Ethiopia. Pull up those maps. So this is an example of their empire. If you look over there to the right, that's India, and they reigned all the way over here to Ethiopia, which is the top part of Africa. Because remember, the Persians are Elamites. That was their kingdom. India, even today, they're still there. The so-called East Indians, which is Elam. Give me the next one, because I know that one might look hard to see. This is another map of the kingdom. As you see there to the right, you see India right there on the right. That's where they was all the way from India all the way to northern part of Africa to Ethiopia. Give me the next one. This is another example that might be easier to see of their reign during the time of Xerxes. So let's go back. Read on.
The book of Esther, chapter 1 and verse 1. Now it came to pass in the days of Artaxerxes. This is Artaxerxes which reigned from India even unto Ethiopia, over 107 and 20 provinces. Verse 2. that in those days when the king Ahasuerus sat on the throne of his kingdom, which was in Shushan, the palace, in the third year of his reign, he made a feast unto all his princes and his servants.
So now in the third year of his reign, he made a feast for all his princes and his servants. Read.
The power of Persia and Media, the nobles and princes of the provinces being before him.
Come on.
When he showed the riches of his glorious kingdom and the honor of his excellent majesty many days. Even
So
in
basically, he made a big feast, brought all the princes and the power of Persia and Media, and was showing them his riches of his glorious kingdom and his honor and his excellency. Basically, he was basically parading all that he had attained off. Come on.
even 180 days. And when these days were expired, the king made a feast unto all the people that were present in Shushan the palace.
So now watch this. Jump down to verse 10.
Verse 10. On the seventh day, when the heart of the king was merry with
So now
wine.
on the seventh day, he's merry. You know, he got some drink in him. He's merry. Read on.
On the seventh day, when the heart of the king was merry with wine, he commanded Mehuman, Biztha, Harbona, Bigtha, and Abagtha, Zethar, and Carcas, the 7 chamberlains that served in the presence of Ahasuerus the king,
Read.
to bring Vashti, the queen, before the king with the crown royal, to show the people and the princes her beauty, for she was fair
So
to look on.
he commanded the chamberlains to go and bring Vashti. Because remember, this was a whole feast that he had made to where he was showing off all his kingdom, his grace. So he like, I'm gonna show the queen off too, because she bad. She was fair to look upon. So he had the chamberlains go get Vashti. Read.
Verse 11, verse 12.
Verse 12.
But the queen Vashti refused to come at the king's commandment
but
by his chamberlain.
Vashti refused. She said, no, I'm not coming. Read on.
Therefore was the king very wroth, and his anger burned in him. Then the king said to the wise men, which knew the times, for so was the king's manner toward all that knew law and judgment. And the next unto him was Karshina, Shethar, Admatha, Tarshish, Meres, Marsana, and Memucan, the 7 princes of Persia and Media, which saw the king's face, and which sat the first in the
So you had 7 princes of Persia and Media that saw the king's face, that sat there with him. Watch this, read.
Verse 15. What shall we do unto the queen Vashti according to law? Because she hath not performed the commandment of the king Ahasuerus.
Because she was supposed to summon herself. When the king summoned you, you come. So now they looking, they seeing what's going on. They say, okay, so what shall we do? What shall we do to Vashti according to law? Because she had not performed the commandment that was given by the king. Read on.
Because she had not performed the commandment of the king Ahasuerus by the chamberlains.
Read.
And Memucan answered before the king and the princes, Vashti, the queen, hath not done wrong to the king only, but also to all the princes and to all the people that are in all the provinces of the king.
So
Ahasuerus.
one of his princes came to him and was like, listen, she ain't just do wrong to you. She didn't just do wrong to the king only, but all the princes, it says, and to all the people that are in all the provinces of the king of Ahasuerus. Here's why. Read on.
Verse 17. For this deed of the queen shall come abroad unto all women, so that they shall despise their husbands in their eyes.
Because they're going to see the deed that she did, and guess what they're going to do? They're going to despise their husbands. They're going to do exactly what she did to you. So something got to happen to her. Read on.
When it shall be reported.
Because it's going to be reported. Because remember, there was many people at this feast, and everybody seen and heard it and saw that. Okay, damn. So Ahasuerus called for the queen, and she said, "To hell with him. I ain't coming." Now everybody's going to see that example, and they're going to do the same thing to their husbands. Watch this. Read on.
The king Ahasuerus commanded Vashti, the queen, to be brought in before him, but she came not.
It says, and that's the report they're going to get. Because remember, she's the queen. She's the queen. So many of these women probably look to her as an example, as some type of authority figure in a sense, because she is the queen. So they're going to see her example and say, okay, the queen can get away that with the king. Oh, yeah, I could definitely get away with this from my husband. Watch this. Give me Titus chapter 2 real quick. Just real quick. Just a sidebar, especially for a lot of you sisters. And this is an example of how your example can cause other sisters to fall. Watch this. Give me Titus a second. Titus chapter 2. And just get to the point.
The book of Titus, chapter 2, and verse 3.
Uh-huh.
The aged women likewise, that they be in behavior as becometh holiness.
Because this is how she was supposed to respond when it came to her husband. Read on.
The aged women likewise, that they be in behavior as becometh holiness, not false accusers, not given to much wine.
Read on.
Teachers of good things.
Read.
That they may teach the young women to be sober, to love their husbands, to love their children.
Because the aged women was supposed to be sober. They were supposed to teach the younger women how to love their husbands. So the point is, a lot of times, sisters, you can teach sisters by your example. They will see your example on how you deal with your husband, how you treat your husband, and guess what? They're going to do the same. That's what the heathen understood that during the time of Persian and Mede. That's why they was like, we got to do something. Something got to happen to Vashti because this report is going to go and everyone's going to despise their husbands. So with that, that's why I said sidebar, sisters up in here today, use your example on how you deal with your husband. Other sisters may see it. Other sisters may look at it, and guess what? They're going to do the same thing to theirs. So go back. Esther,
Verse
where did we
18.
leave off? Verse 18?
Yes, sir.
All right, read on.
The book of Esther, chapter 1, and verse 18. Likewise shall the ladies of Persia and Media say this day unto all the king's princes, which have heard of the deed of the queen. Thus shall there arise too much contempt and wrath.
Read.
If it please the king, let there go a royal commandment from him, and let it be written among the laws of the Persians and the Medes, that it be not altered, that Vashti come no more before King Ahasuerus, and let the king give her royal estate unto another that is better than she.
So basically, they said this is what should happen. Let it be written in law that Vashti can no longer come before the king, and basically let the king give her royal estate unto another that is better than she. Read on.
Verse 20. And when the king's decree, which he shall make, be published throughout all his empire, for it is great.
For it is great. His empire was great. Read.
All the wives shall give to their husbands honor, both to great and small.
So that's saying when this decree go out, they're going to honor their husbands. Why? Because the same thing could happen to them that happened to Vashti. Basically, Vashti has now been basically, go sit in the corner. You would never come before the king ever again, and everything is stripped from you. You are no longer a queen. Your royal estate, all that is going to be taken and given to someone else. Watch this. So now, read on.
Verse 21. And the saying pleased the king and the princes. And the king did according to the word of Memucan.
So that saying pleased the king, and he did according to the word of Memucan. Come on.
For he sent letters into all the king's provinces, into every province according to the writing thereof, and to every people after their language, that every man should bear rule in his own house.
That every man should bear rule in his own house. Come on.
And that it should be published according to the language of every people.
So even the heathens, the Persians, understood order, structure when it came to women, but not our people today. They understood, like, you let a woman get disrespect her husband. Now everybody gonna holler at a man got to know how to rule his house. But for some reason, because Esau did differently. Esau, when this happened, Esau pushed that feminist movement because he understood simple black women was going to grab a hold of it, and what does it do? It causes chaos and dysfunction in the family. The Persians understood this. That's why they was on it quick. Like, no, we got deal with her, so that everyone may know and see that you can't roll like this. This is the repercussions for your actions. So now, chapter 2, verse 1.
The book of Esther, chapter 2 and verse 1.
So now a decree was made. Vashti was stripped from all her royal estate, and it was supposed to be given to another. So watch this, read.
After these things, when the wrath of King Ahasuerus was appeased.
So now after these things, after the feast, everything was over, the wrath of Ahasuerus was appeased. Read.
He remembered Vashti and what she had done, and what was decreed against her.
So he remembered Vashti. He remembered what she was done, what was done, and what was decreed of her. Watch this, read.
Then said the king's servants that ministered unto him, let there be fair young virgins sought for the king.
Come on.
And let the king appoint officers in all the provinces of his kingdom, that they may gather together all the fair young virgins unto Shushan the palace.
So you got to read a little faster because we do got a lot of reading. Read on.
To the house of the woman, unto the custody of Hege, the king's chamberlain, keeper of the women, and let their kings for purification be given them. And let the maiden which pleaseth the king be queen instead of Vashti. And the thing pleased the king, and he did so.
So that saying pleased the king, and that's what he did. Read on.
Now in Shushan the palace, there was a certain Jew, whose name was Mordecai, the son of Jair, the son of Shimei, the son of Kish, a Benjamite, who had been carried away from Jerusalem with the captivity which had been carried away with Jeconiah, king of Judah, whom Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, had carried away.
Come on.
And he brought up Hadassah, that is Esther.
So now, we just read the same thing in Esther chapter 11 in the Apocrypha, where this is the same history. Jeconiah is that same Jeconias. Read on.
And he brought up Hadassah, that is Esther, his uncle's daughter, for she had neither father nor mother. And the maid was fair and beautiful.
So Esther, she was bad. She was fair and beautiful. She didn't have father and mother. It's going to explain why she didn't have father and mother. Read.
Whom Mordecai, when her father and mother were dead, took for his own
So
daughter.
what happened was when her father and mother died, he took her in as his daughter. Read on.
So it came to pass, when the king's commandment and his decree was heard, and when many maidens were gathered together unto Shushan the palace, to the custody of Haggai, that Esther was brought also unto the king's house, to the custody of Haggai, keeper of the women.
So now Esther was a part of that group of maids and virgins that came to the king's, into the custody of Haggai, the keeper of the women. Read on.
Verse 9. And the maiden pleased him, and she obtained kindness of him. And he speedily gave her things for purification, which such things as belonged to her, and 7 maidens, which were meet to be given her, out of the king's house. And he preferred her and her maids unto the best place of the house of the women.
Esther pleased Haggai, the keeper of the woman, so he speedily gave her the things for her purification. Because remember, they had to be purified a certain way. They had to, and we're going to read it. They soaked in oils and frankincense and myrrh for months. Watch this. Read on.
Verse 10. Esther had not showed her people nor her kindred, for Mordecai had charged her that she should not
So now,
show it.
keep in mind, Esther did not say who she was from. She didn't say she was from the tribe of Benjamin. She did not say she was an Israelite. So Esther, and this lets you know, Israel, we are like the sand of the sea. We are many different faces, shades, and things of that nature, because they couldn't tell who she was. So that means she had a mixed look in a sense, because she didn't let it be known who was her kindred and who she was from. So that, because remember, we've been going through captivities. There have been a lot of intermingling amongst our people through the lineages. So we started to take on different characteristics of nations around us. Understand that. And Esther had that type of look to where it wasn't known like, yeah, you're an Israelite. Because think about it. They would have came in, they would have been like, yeah, you look like one of them Israelites. But she didn't let it be known what her nationality was, because she had that look. She could pass for it. You see, matter of fact, give me Daniel real quick. Because remember, this is what Daniel said. Watch this. Daniel, what is it? 9? You know what I want? Daniel 9 and verse 7. Because watch this. Daniel wrote this, because if you've been following, chapter 9 was during the Persian captivity, during the first year of Darius, the son of Ahasuerus. This Darius was the one that came and overtook Babylon. So now, chapter 9, verse 7.
The book of Daniel, chapter 9 and verse 7. O Lord, righteousness belongeth unto thee, but unto us confusion of faces.
It says, right, O Lord, righteousness belongeth unto thee, but unto us confusion of faces. Why? Read on.
As at this day, to the men of Judah and to the inhabitants of Jerusalem,
Read.
and unto all Israel that are near and that are far off, through all the countries whither thou hast driven them,
Read.
because of their trespass that they have trespassed against thee.
Because of their trespass, which they have trespassed against thee. Because as we read on, as we get to the time of Ezra, when Ezra came on the scene, he had to go in and correct everybody because they was dealing with most strange wives. They had to clear out all that. You had many of them. So there was a lot of intermingling amongst the other nations. That's why Daniel had to say right here, we got confusion of faces. And you even see it today. You see it today. I guarantee you pull up a lot of pictures of people that you see and like, damn, that's a heathen. No, that's an Israelite. Because we have characteristics of these heathens because we were mixing amongst the heathen. So go back. Ezra, verse 10. Esther 2 and verse 10.
The book of Esther, chapter 2 and verse 10. Esther had not showed her people nor her kindred, for Mordecai had charged her that she should not show it.
Read.
And Mordecai walked every day before the court of the women's house to know how Esther did and what should become of her.
So now, Mordecai was checking on Esther to make sure, to know how she did and what should become of her, what the status. Read on.
Now when every maid's turn was come to go in to King Ahasuerus, after that she had been 12 months.
After that, she had been 12 months. So they had to wait a whole year before they would come before King Ahasuerus. Read on.
According to the manner of the women. For so were the days of their purifications accomplished, to wit.
So this is why when she came on the scene, the keeper of the women, Haggai, or however you pronounce that, hasted her because he pleased her. He hasted her to start the purification because it was going to take 12 months before she could go before the king. Read on.
To wit, 6 months with oil of myrrh.
Because 6 months they had to basically purify themselves with oil of myrrh. Read.
And 6 months with sweet odors.
And then another 6 months with sweet odors. Read.
And with other things for the purifying of the women.
And other things for the purifying of women. To basically, when they came around the king, they smelled good. They said they smelled good. This ain't no what's some perfumes.
Paris Hilton.
This ain't that Paris. This ain't that perfume by Rihanna. Nah, this that purification. This that sweet savor smell. And that's how they had to purify themselves. For 12 months, they was purifying in mirth and in oils and sweet odors. Read on.
Verse 13. Then thus came every maiden unto the king. Whatsoever she desired was given her to go with her out of the house of the women unto the king's house.
So whatever she needed, whatever she desired, because remember, he was supposed to be choosing someone to replace Vashti. So whatever they needed, they were given out of the king's house to basically think of it like, I don't really want to use these words. I can't think of that. Like almost like a beauty contest, but it's not in that sense. Basically, they had to purify themselves. They were given whatever they needed to go before the king, because he was going to pick somebody that was fair to look upon. Because remember, we just read about Vashti. He was parading her. He wanted to parade her off to everybody because she was fair to look upon. So that's the same thing he was looking for this time. Watch this. Read on.
Verse 14. In the evening she went, and on the morrow she returned into the second house of the women, to the custody of Shaashgaz, the king's chamberlain, which kept the concubines. She came in unto the king no more, except the king delighted in her, and that she were called by name.
Read.
Now when the turn of Esther, the daughter of Abihail, the uncle of Mordecai, who had taken her for his daughter, was come to go in unto the king, she required nothing but what Haggai, the king's chamberlain, the keeper of the women, appointed.
So Esther didn't require nothing. She didn't ask for nothing. Only what they had already appointed unto her. Read on.
And Esther obtained favor in the sight of all them that looked upon her.
And guess what? That's how bad Esther didn't need nothing. That's how bad Esther was. Esther was a dime piece. Esther was bad. She didn't ask for nothing extra, just whatever they had already given her, the provisions they gave her when she got in there, and she obtained favor on all that looked upon her. She was breaking necks. That's how bad Esther was. Read on.
Verse 16. So Esther was taken unto the king Ahasuerus into his house royal in the 10th month, which is the month Tebeth, in the 7th year of his reign.
Come on.
And the king loved Esther above all the women.
So the king loved Esther above all women. Read on.
And she obtained grace and favor in his sight more than all the virgins, so that he set the royal crown upon her head and made her queen instead of Vashti.
So Esther pleased the king, and he favored her above all women. It said, read verse 18 again. No, verse 17 again.
Verse 17. And the king loved Esther above all the women.
He loved Esther above all women. Read.
And she obtained grace and favor in his sight more than all the virgins.
Read.
So that he set the royal crown upon her head and made her queen.
So now Esther has now been made queen instead of Vashti. Read on.
Verse 18. Then the king made a great feast unto all his princes and his servants, even Esther's feast. And he made a release to the provinces and gave gifts according to the state of the king.
Read.
And when the virgins were gathered together the second time, then Mordecai sat in the king's gate. Esther had not yet showed her kindred nor her people, as Mordecai had charged her.
So now she still haven't made known what her kindred were or who her people were, because Mordecai charged her not to do so. Watch this. Read on.
For Esther did the commandment of Mordecai, like as when she was brought up with him. In those days, while Mordecai sat in the king's gate.
So it says Esther did the commandment of Mordecai like as when she was brought up with him. Because Mordecai was essentially her father in this sense, because her father and mother died. He took her in and treated her as his daughter. So she followed his commandment like she did growing up, because he was the one that was raising her because her parents died. Read on.
Verse 21. In those days, while Mordecai sat in the king's gate, two of the king's chamberlains, Bigthan and Teresh, of those which kept the door, were wroth.
Come on.
And sought to lay hand on the king Ahasuerus.
So now, it says, in those days, while Mordecai sat in the king's chamber, there was two chamberlains, Bigthan and Teresh, of those who kept the door, were wroth, and they sought to lay hand on King Ahasuerus. Read on.
And the thing was known to Mordecai, who told it unto Esther the queen.
Come on.
And Esther certified the king thereof in Mordecai's name. And when inquisition was made of the matter, it was found out. Therefore they were both hanged on a tree, and it was written in the book of the Chronicles before the king.
So now, Mordecai, he heard the talkings of two of Ahasuerus, the king's chamberlains, on how they conspired to kill Ahasuerus or Xerxes. It says, and the thing was known to Mordecai. So Mordecai told Esther, and Esther, being the queen, came and told it to the king. And basically, those men were hanged. And guess what? This was documented in the book of the Chronicles before the king, because they documented everything. So it was a record made of what Mordecai did. Keep that in mind as we read on. Read on.
Chapter 3, verse 1. After these things did King Ahasuerus promote Haman.
Because that being written in the Chronicles before the king is going to play a part historically as we read on during this history. Read on.
After these things did King Ahasuerus promote Haman, the son of...
So now after these things, after Esther was made queen, after the two men was hanged who conspired against him, the king promoted Haman. Read.
The son of Hammedatha, the Agagite.
It says the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite. Watch this. Give me 1 Samuel 15 and 8. Haman was of the lineage of Agag, who was an Amalekite. Haman will be what you call will be Amalek. They so-called, the people who call themselves Jews, the synagogue of Satan. This would be Haman. Give me 1 Samuel 15 verse 8.
The book of 1 Samuel, chapter 15 and verse 8. And he took Agag, the king of the Amalekites, alive.
It says he took Agag, the king of the Amalekites, alive. Read.
And utterly destroyed all the people with the edge of the sword.
So this was the lineage that Haman came from. Give me Genesis 36 and 12.
This is the book of Genesis, chapter 36 and verse 12. And Timnah was concubine to Eliphaz, Esau's son, and she bare to Eliphaz Amalek.
She bare Eliphaz Amalek. Remember, we read Agag, who was a son of who? Amalek. And Amalek was a son of who? Esau. That's why they all the same people. They want to try to make themselves different. No, we see you, they all Esau.
Right.
Esau. So go back. Esther. Esther.
The book of Esther, chapter 3 and verse 1.
Come on.
After these things did King Ahasuerus promote Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite,
The Agagite. Read on.
and advanced him, and set his seat above all the princes that were with him.
So he was basically promoted and put in a seat above all the princes with him. Read on.
And all the king's servants that were in the king's gate bowed and reverenced Haman, for the king had so commanded concerning him. But Mordecai bowed not, nor did him reverence.
So now, Mordecai did not bow or reverence. This is why I read.
Verse 3. Then the king's servants, which were in the king's gate, said unto Mordecai, Why transgressest thou the king's commandment? Now it came to pass, when they spake daily unto him, and he hearkened not unto them, that they told Haman, to see whether Mordecai's matters would stand. For he had told them that he was a Jew.
So basically, he told them, I don't do it. It's not our custom nor our commandment to do so. And they told him he was a Jew. So now they brought his matter forth to see if it would stand. Meaning what? Him not bowing to Haman because he was a Jew. Read on.
And when Haman saw that Mordecai bowed not, nor did him reverence, then was Haman full of wrath.
So now, when Haman understood that Mordecai didn't bow or give him reverence, it says Haman was full of wrath. But watch this. Get Esther 12. Esther, the 12th chapter, and verse 2, verse 1. Because watch this. Haman was full of wrath of Mordecai. There was also something else that took place as to why he was mad at Mordecai. Read that.
The book of Esther in the Apocrypha, chapter 12 and verse 1. And Mordecai took his rest in the court.
So now we just read this history in Esther 2 towards the end with the two chamberlains. But watch this. Read on.
And Mordecai took his rest in the court with Gabbatha and Terah, the two eunuchs of the king and keepers of the palace.
That's what it meant by chamberlains. They were chamberlains. Chamberlains were eunuchs. That's why they were keepers of the women. They were keepers of the house. They were made eunuchs so that they didn't what? Try to sleep with the women. Read on.
And he heard their devices and searched out their purposes and learned that they were about to lay hands upon Artaxerxes the king. And so he certified the king of them.
So he certified the king of them. Read.
Then the king examined the two eunuchs. And after that, they had confessed it. They were strangled.
So they confessed that we was about to lay hands on you. So they were strangled. They were hung on a tree. Read on.
And the king made a record of these things. And Mordecai also wrote thereof. So the king commanded Mordecai to serve in the court, and for this he rewarded him.
So the king commanded Mordecai to serve in the court, and for this he rewarded him, and a record was made, and that's what we just read in Esther 2. Read on.
Howbeit, Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, who was in great honor with the king, sought to molest Mordecai and his people because of the two eunuchs of the king.
So it says right here they're letting you giving some insight on why Haman was so upset and mad at Mordecai. It says he sought to molest, meaning kill, Mordecai and his people because of the two eunuchs of the king. Now, why would he want to kill Mordecai and the people because of the two eunuchs of the king? As we read on in history, you'll start to understand it. But and we're going to touch on it later. But remember, Greece and Persia, they were enemies. Greece was always in the mix trying to overthrow Persia. And two of these eunuchs were a part of Haman's people who were going to kill. They got in good. Same thing with Haman. Haman now, he at the top of the priest, which we're going to read that as we read on. But he was mad because of the two eunuchs of the king. Why? Because they were ousted. Mordecai ousted them and they were killed. That was a part of the plan to kill the king. Now watch this. Go back. Go back to Esther. So keep that in mind as we read on. Go back to Esther.
Chapter 3 and verse
Where do we
5.
leave off? Watch this. Yeah, read on.
The book of Esther, chapter 3 and verse 5.
So now watch this. Jump down to, matter of fact, read on.
And when Haman saw that Mordecai bowed not, nor did him reverence, then was Haman full of wrath. And he thought scorn to lay hands on Mordecai alone, for they had showed him the people of Mordecai. Wherefore Haman sought to destroy all the Jews that were throughout the whole kingdom.
So Haman wanted to destroy all the Jews. That's what we just read in Esther 12, where it says he wanted to kill Mordecai and all his people. So now jump down to verse 8. Read verse 8.
Verse 8. And Haman said unto King Ahasuerus, there is a certain people scattered abroad and dispersed among the people in all.
So now Haman, because he had obtained favor at Xerxes and he was put above all his kings, he went to Xerxes basically to explain to him about us, about the Israelites. Read on.
And Haman said unto King Ahasuerus, there is a certain people scattered abroad and dispersed among the people in all the provinces of thy kingdom, and their laws are diverse from all people. Neither keep they the king's laws. Therefore, it is not for the king's profit to suffer them.
So basically, he said, listen, there's a diverse people in your kingdom, and they don't keep the laws of the kings. And therefore, it is not for the king's profit to suffer them, meaning it's not going to profit you to allow them to still be alive, basically, and to do what they do because they despise the commandments of kings. Read on.
If it please the king, let it be written that they may be destroyed.
So it says, if it please you, let it be written that they may be destroyed. Read on.
And I will pay 10,000 talents of silver to the hands of those that have the charge of the business.
Hey, and he even made a deal. So he said, listen, I'll pay 10,000 talents of silver to charge those, to those that have the charge of the business. Read.
To bring it into the king's treasury.
And we're going to put it in the king's treasures. Read on.
And the king took his ring from his hand and gave it unto Haman the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, the Jews' enemy. And the king.
You hear what it says? It says, and it gave it unto Haman the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, the Jews' enemies. Understand this has always been Esau. And if you've been following along, at every point in history, Esau has been there to try to destroy us. Understand that. During the Assyrians, during the Babylonians, remember they was there burning the temple down, raise it, even to the foundation thereof. Even when we get into the Persian and Mede, this ain't the first time Esau has been there trying to destroy our people. When you read the book of Judith, Esau was right there counseling the king, Holofernes, on how to deal with the Israelites. He was right there counseling Holofernes, even right here, Haman right here. They were always been the Jews' enemies. Read on.
And the king said unto Haman, the silver is given to thee, the people also, to do with them as it seemeth good to thee.
So he said, the silver has been given to thee, the people also to do with them as seemeth good to thee. So basically, he gave them, he gave him the money to do what he needed to do, and he said, do what seemeth good to thee. Read on.
Then were the king's scribes called on the 13th day of the first month, and there was written according to all that Haman had commanded unto the king's lieutenants, and to the governors that were over every province, and to the rulers of every people of every province, according to the writing thereof, and to every people after their language. In the name of King Ahasuerus was it written, and sealed in the king's ring.
So it says, in the name of Ahasuerus was it written and sealed with the king's ring, meaning it was official. Read on.
And the letters were sent by post into all the king's provinces.
So these letters were sent by post. Now watch this. Go to Esther 13. What was written in those letters? What was in the letter that was written by the king?
This is the book of Esther in the Apocrypha, chapter 13 and verse 1.
Come on.
The copy of the letters was this. The great king Artaxerxes writeth these things to the princes and governors that are under him from India unto Ethiopia.
So he sent it to all his province throughout all, because remember, we were scattered. We had been scattered in Babylon. Guess what? We were scattered in Persia, and we were in these different provinces. So he sent this letter throughout all his provinces, from India to Ethiopia. Read on.
And in 127 provinces. After that I became Lord over many nations, and had dominion over the whole world.
So this was the letter that was being sent out. Read on.
Not lifted up with presumption of my authority, but carrying myself always with equity and mildness. I purpose to settle my subjects continually in a quiet life.
So he said, I've been a ruler over many nations, not lifted up with presumption of my authority, but carrying myself always with equity and mildness, meaning he said I was fair. I didn't puff myself up in my authority. I always dealt fairly with my subjects, my people, the people that I ruled. Read on.
I purpose to settle my subjects continually in a quiet life.
Read.
And making my kingdom peaceable.
He said, I made my kingdom peaceable. Read.
And open for passage to the utmost coast, to renew peace, which is desired of all men.
Read.
Now, when I asked my counselors how this might be brought to pass,
Haman, which is Haman that you read in Esther, read.
That excelled in wisdom among us and was approved for his constant goodwill and steadfast fidelity.
So think about it. Haman had gotten a good name amongst the king. That's how the king listened to him. Because listen to how the king is talking about him in the letter. He says, Haman that excelled in wisdom amongst us and was approved for his constant goodwill and steadfast fidelity and had the honor of the second place in the kingdom. So he was second to Xerxes. Read on.
Verse 4. Declared unto us that in all nations throughout the world there was scattered a certain malicious people that had laws contrary to all nations.
So now listen to the verbiage. Nice. This was in the letter. It says Haman declared that there was a certain malicious people. Read.
Sorry.
Read verse 4 again.
Verse 4. Declared unto us that in all nations throughout the world there was scattered a certain malicious people that had laws contrary to all nations.
They had laws contrary to all nations. Read.
And continually despised the commandments of kings, so as the uniting of our kingdoms, honorably intended by us, cannot go forward.
So now the uniting of our kingdoms couldn't go forward. That's what Haman was proposing. He was playing on the king's wanting to have peace in his whole kingdom and everyone united. So he said, listen, these malicious people, the uniting of our kingdom can't go forward. You won't be able to profit. Read on.
Verse 5. Seeing then we understand that this people alone is continually in opposition unto all men.
It says, seeing that we understand that this people alone is continual in opposition unto all men. Read.
Differing in the strange manner of their laws.
It says differing in the strange manner of their laws. Read.
And evil affected to our state, working all the mischief they can, that our kingdom may not be firmly established.
And guess what? They think the same thing today. That's why they look at us like evil, because we want to keep God's commandments. They look at us as vile and evil because we want to change how our people are acting in the community. We want to bring our people back to the laws of God to stop being whoremongers and adulterers and murderers, which even during the time of Esther, you couldn't be, during the time of the Persian and Medes, you couldn't be a murderer. There were certain things you couldn't do, but we were looked at as a malicious. Why? Because they understand when we keep God's commandments, they can't rule. Esau understands that fully. They understand when these people are in compliance with God's commandments, we cannot rule. That's why they look at us as a malicious people. That's why they look at our laws contrary to the commandments of kings. Because realistically, think about it. Is it evil or malicious to tell someone, thou shalt not kill? Is it evil or malicious for a woman to wear a dress and to adorn herself in modest apparel and to walk uprightly being chaste? Is it malicious? Is it malicious for us to love one another and not have hatred? No, but to the other nations it is. Especially Esau. That's how they look at it, because they understand when they keep in God's commandments, we can't stay in rulership. Read on.
Verse 6. Therefore have we commanded that all they that are signified in writing unto you by Haman, who was ordained over the affairs and is next unto us, shall all, with their wives and children, be utterly destroyed.
So now everyone, wives, children, everyone to be utterly destroyed. Remember, this has always been Esau's MO, to utterly destroy us. It goes all the way back to Genesis, the 27th chapter, where that hatred, he has that perpetual hatred. This has always been Esau's MO. Read on.
With their wives and children be utterly destroyed by the sword of their enemies, without all mercy and pity.
Without mercy or pity. Because understand this, Esau, if it was up to Esau, that's why you know the Lord is with us. God is with us. Because if it was up to Esau, everyone would be killed off the face of the earth. All of us, women, children, with no mercy or pity. And we seen that because remember, when Esau came into power, they didn't show no mercy. Look it through history, and we're going once we get to the Greek captivity, Roman, even up to the captivity today, Esau has never showed mercy to us. This has always been their MO. Read on.
The 14th day of the 12th month Adar of this present year, that they who of old and now also are malicious may in one day with violence go into the grave.
It says, may in one day with violence go into the grave. Haman wanted to wipe us out in one day. Read on.
And so ever hereafter cause our affairs to be well settled and without trouble.
And guess what? Whenever they're completely wiped off the face of the earth, our affairs will be settled and we will be without trouble. Watch this. Read on.
Verse 8. Then Mordecai thought upon all the works of the Lord and made his prayer unto him.
So now let's go back. Esther, where we left off. Esther.
Verse 13.
Verse 13.
The book of Esther, chapter 3 and verse 13. And the letters were sent by post into all the king's provinces to destroy, to kill, and to cause to perish all Jews.
That's what we just read in Esther 13. Read on.
Both young and old, little children and women in one day, even upon the 13th day of the 12th month, which is the month Adar, and to take the spoil of them for a prey. The copy of the writing for a commandment to be given in every province was published unto all people, that they should be ready against that day. The post went out, being hastened by the king's commandment, and the decree was given in Shushan the palace. And the king and Haman sat down to drink.
So Haman, we good. Now he sat down and had a drink with the king. Read on.
But the city Shushan was perplexed.
But the city Shushan was perplexed. Why? Because Israel was like, what the hell? There was a great mourning. They were perplexed. Chapter 4, verse 1.
The book of Esther, chapter 4 and verse 1.
Come on.
When Mordecai perceived all that was done, Mordecai rent his clothes and put on sackcloth with ashes and went out into the midst of the city and cried with a loud and a bitter cry.
He cried with a loud and a bitter cry. He went, rent his clothes, and cried and yelled. Because think about it. Think about it. You just seen a law. And that's why I'm telling you, our people, you really got to put yourself here in the history that you're reading, because guess what? These things are going to happen again. Don't think laws aren't going to be passed, because that's what happened. A law was passed. Like a lot of times we read it like, oh, a letter was written and a letter was sent throughout all the provinces, and then that was the real. No, this was a law that was passed, that all the Israelites, men, women, and children, were to be killed, were to be put to death without mercy or pity. So think about that. That's what you really got to put your, because guess what? That'll help you put your mind to what is to come, because it's going to happen. Laws are going to be passed to where you can't be an Israelite, you can't keep God's commandments, and guess what's going to happen? Think about it. Here it is. Everything's good and gravy. You in your house that you might have just got done working. You got home. You walk into the house. I'm talking about even during the time of Persian. You walk into the house, and your wife cooking. The kids come and say, "Daddy, hey!" You just got home. You smell something good in the kitchen and stuff like that. And then you eat, and then you go out to where the post is, where they put all the decrees, and then you like, why everybody gathered around there? What's going on? And then you go and you read, a law has been passed that all Israelites gonna be put to death. Think about where your mind gonna be at. So that'll help you understand why Mordecai went into the city and cried with a loud and bitter cry. No! You gotta understand that. Perplexed. Read on.
Verse 2. And came even before the king's gate, for none might enter into the king's gate clothed with sackcloth.
So he came unto the king's gate, but you couldn't enter the king's gate clothed with sackcloth. You had to have a certain attire. You had to look a certain way. You couldn't look like a bum coming into the king's gate. Read on.
And in every province, whithersoever the king's commandment and his decree
Now,
came.
I'm not saying Mordecai was a bum. I don't want nobody to take it like that. But he put sackcloth on. He didn't have on royal garments or garments that looked of basically prestigious garments. He had on sackcloth because they were mourning. It was great perplexity. They rent their clothes. It was an uproar. Read on.
and in every province, whithersoever the king's commandment and his decree came. There was great mourning among the Jews, and fasting, and weeping and wailing, and many lay in sackcloth and ashes.
They laid in sackcloth and ashes. Why? Because they were mourning, they were fasting, they were weeping. Watch this. Go to Esther 13. Esther 13. Real quick, verse 8.
The book of Esther in the Apocrypha, chapter 13 and verse 8.
So now, Mordecai, he ran out to the city. He was fasting and he was praying, and this is what he prayed. Read.
Then Mordecai thought upon all the works of the Lord, and made his prayer unto him, saying,
So after all that, because think about it, he read the decree, he went out, he yelled, he was perplexed, he cried with a bitter cry, and he thought upon all the things of the Lord, and then this is what he prayed. Read.
O Lord, Lord, the King Almighty, for the whole world is in thy power. And if thou hast appointed to save Israel, there is no man that can gainsay thee.
It says, if you appointed to save Israel, there's no man that can gainsay thee. It don't matter what happened. If you're going to save Israel, there's nothing anyone can do. And that's the mindset we got to have today. Because guess what? It's been prophesied that God is going to deliver us. So there ain't nothing nobody can do. Ain't no stopping this truth. There's nothing our enemies can do to stop this. And that's what Mordecai is saying. Read on.
For thou hast made heaven and earth, and all the wondrous things under the heaven. Thou art Lord of all things, and there is no man that can resist thee, which art the Lord.
Read.
Thou knowest all things, and thou knowest, Lord, that it was neither in contempt nor pride, nor for any desire of glory, that I did not bow down to proud.
So he's praying. He's like, I didn't do this for any type of contempt nor pride or to desire glory. Read on.
For I could have been content with goodwill for the salvation of Israel to kiss the soles of his feet.
He said, because I could have been content for goodwill for the salvation of Israel to kiss the soles of his feet. Read.
But I did this, that I might not prefer the glory of man above the glory of God.
He said, I did this because I didn't want to prefer the glory of man above the glory of God. He gave God the glory, not man. So I ain't bowing to no heathen. Read on.
Neither will I worship any but thee, O God, neither will I do it in pride. And now, O Lord God and King, spare thy people, for their eyes are upon us to bring us to naught. Yea, they desire to destroy the inheritance that hath been thine from the beginning.
So he asked the Lord to spare thy people. This is the same thing we're supposed to be praying in our prayers. Lord, spare thy people. Thine enemy has come against us. Spare thy people, Lord. Read on.
Despise not the portion which thou hast delivered out of Egypt for thine own self. Hear my prayer, and be merciful unto thine inheritance. Turn our sorrow into joy, that we may live, O Lord, and praise thy name, and destroy not the mouths of them that praise thee, O Lord.
Read.
All Israel in like manner cried most earnestly unto the Lord.
And guess what? All Israel in like manner, as Mordecai did, cried unto the Lord. Read.
Because their death was before their eyes.
Because death was before their eyes. It was going to happen. It was the decree that, yes, y'all are going to die. So everyone knew that we about to die. So they cried unto the Lord. So now let's go back. Esther, what was we at? 4
and 15.
4 and 15. Was it 4 and 15?
3 and 15.
3 and 15, yeah. So now, chapter 4 and, no, we was in 4.
Who was in 4?
And 3. So now let's read on. Esther, chapter 4, verse 4.
Verse 4?
Yeah.
The book of Esther, chapter 4 and verse 4. So Esther's maids and her chamberlains came and told it her. Then was the queen exceedingly grieved, and she sent raiment to clothe Mordecai and to take away his sackcloth from him, but he received it not.
So Esther heard what happened because the chamberlains came and told her. Remember, they still don't know who Esther is. They don't know that she is a Jew. They don't know she is of those people. So she heard it from her chamberlains because they were talking about what was happening. And it was made known unto Esther what was supposed to take place. So her being exceedingly grieved, she sent clothes to Mordecai to clothe him, but he refused. He didn't receive it not. Read on.
Then called Esther for Hatak, one of the king's chamberlains, whom he had appointed to attend upon her, and gave him a commandment to Mordecai to know what it was and why it was.
Read.
So Hatak went forth to Mordecai unto the street of the city, which was before the king's gate. And Mordecai told him of all that had happened unto him, and of the sum of the money that Haman had promised to pay the king's treasuries for the Jews to destroy them.
So now she sent her chamberlain to go talk to Mordecai to see what was happening, what was going on. Because remember, Mordecai, he was rewarded and he ministered in the gates of the king. But he was in sackcloth. So you couldn't enter into the gates of the king. So Esther wanted to know why, what was going on. And she was grieved at that. That's why she sent him clothes to basically take off the sackcloth so he could come into the gates of the court. So he refused it. So she sent a chamberlain to see what was going on and what was happening. And Mordecai told the chamberlain all that was happening. Read on.
Verse 8. Also he gave him the copy of the writing of the decree that was given at Shushan to destroy them.
Also, he gave him a copy of the writing. Read on.
To show it unto Esther.
So that Esther could see what that writing was. Read on.
And to declare it unto her. And to charge her that she should go in unto the king. To make supplication unto him. And to make request before him for her.
So now he charged Esther to go into the king and to make supplication. Read on.
And Hatak came and told Esther the words of Mordecai. Again, Esther spake unto Hatak. And gave him commandment unto Mordecai. All the king's servants and the people of the king's provinces do know that whosoever, whether man or woman, shall come unto the king into the inner court, who is not called, there is one law of his to put him to death, except such to whom the king shall hold out the golden scepter.
So Esther had to send back to Mordecai, like, hey, listen, I can't just go into no one could just go up into the king. There was a law put that if you came and you wasn't called, you would be put to death, except the king put out his golden scepter unto you. So Esther's like, I can't just walk up in there. I might die. Watch this. Read on.
That he may live. But I have not been called to come in unto the king these 30 days.
She said, I ain't been called in 30 days to come into the king. Read on.
And they told to Mordecai Esther's words. Then Mordecai commanded to answer Esther.
Watch what Mordecai commanded Esther. Read.
Think not with thyself that thou shalt escape in the king's house more than all the Jews.
Oh, you think you up in the king's house? Don't think you going to escape more than the Jews. Read on.
For if thou altogether holdest thy peace at this time, then shall their enlargement and deliverance arise to the Jews from another place.
It says, then, understand what Mordecai is saying. He said, don't think you're going to be, just because you're in the king's house, you're going to escape more than the Jews. Because it says, if you hold your peace, guess what? There shall their enlargement and deliverance arise to the Jews from another place. The Lord will make something happen somewhere else to where we're delivered. So don't think you're going to be safe just because you're in the king's palace. Read on.
But thou and thy father's house shall be destroyed.
But you and your father's house will be destroyed. Understand that. That's how you'll be killed, and the Lord will rise up somebody else to deliver us. That's the same thing. Understand, and that's why Romans 15:4, the things that were written aforetime were written for our learning. We're supposed to reflect on our history and help it and let it guide us today. Because this is an example right here. And this is for anybody that you don't want to do the work. You want to be slothful. Guess what? The Lord will kill you and raise up somebody else to do it. Because it won't be stopped. Understand that. So that's why we got to make sure that we are factors in this truth. And here's the example here. Mordecai is explaining to Esther. Because Esther got beside herself. It's like, I can't go into the king. Her whole nation about to get killed. And she's like, I can't go into the king. So Mordecai say, listen, don't think you safe. Because the Lord will kill you. You and your father's house will be destroyed. And the Lord will raise up deliverance from somewhere else. Read on.
And who knoweth whether thou art come to the kingdom for such a time as this?
And it says, who knoweth whether thou art come to the kingdom for such a time as this? For all you know, the Lord put you in this place. The Lord made things happen. We're going to read it as we get forward. The Lord set all this up. The Lord, and that's what Mordecai's saying. Who's to say that you didn't get put in this position as queen just for this? Read on.
Verse 15. Then Esther bade them return Mordecai this answer. Go, gather together all the Jews that are present in Shushan, and fast ye for me, and neither eat nor drink 3 days, night or day. I also and my maidens will fast likewise, and so will I go in unto the king.
So he said, gather all the Jews and fast for me. For 3 days, fast for me. Don't eat. It says, neither eat nor drink 3 days, day or night. It says, me likewise and my maidens will fast, read. And she said, I'll go into the king. Come on.
Which is not according to the law.
Which is not according to their law, read.
And if I perish, I perish.
She said, if I die, I die. That's got to be the mentality. I'm going to do the work, and if I die, I die. Because ultimately the righteous don't die. Read on.
Verse 17. So Mordecai went his way and did according to all that Esther had
So
commanded.
now watch this. Let's go to Esther in the Apocrypha. Chapter 14. And we're gonna skim through this because we're getting short on time. We still got a lot more. So kind of read fast. So start at verse 1.
14 verse 1.
14 verse 1.
The book of Esther in the Apocrypha, chapter 14 and verse 1. Queen Esther also, being in fear of
Why
death.
was she in fear of death? Because she knew she had to go to the king and she wasn't called. And that was the law, that anyone that came would be put to death unless the king put out a golden scepter. Read on.
Resorted unto the Lord.
So she resorted unto the Lord. That's what it's talking about, what we just read when she said she would fast. Read on.
And laid away her glorious apparel, and put on the garments of anguish and mourning. And instead of precious ointments, she covered her head with ashes and dung. And she humbled her body greatly. And all the places of her joy she filled with her torn hair. And she prayed unto the Lord God of Israel, saying, O my Lord, thou only art our king. Help me, desolate woman, which have no helper but thee.
Come on.
For my danger is in mine hand.
For my danger is in my hand. Read on.
From my youth up I have heard in the tribe of my family that thou, O Lord, tookest Israel from among all people.
She says, from my youth I've heard in the tribe of my family. Read on.
And our fathers from all their predecessors.
That the Lord took his Israel from among all people, and our fathers from all our predecessors. Read.
For a perpetual inheritance, and thou hast performed whatsoever thou didst promise them. And now we have sinned before thee, therefore hast thou given us into the hands of our enemies, because we worship their gods, O Lord. Thou art righteous.
Listen to the prayer of this righteous woman. And this is an example of many of you sisters on how to direct your prayers and how to pray to the Lord. Because we're in the same situation now. Right. We were taken from among men, from among all nations as an inheritance, but now we're in captivity because we've sinned. Read on.
Verse 8. Nevertheless, it satisfied them not that we are in bitter captivity, but they have stricken hands with their idols.
Come on.
That they will abolish the thing that thou with thy mouth hast ordained, and destroy thy inheritance, and stop the mouth of them that praise thee, and quench the glory of thy house, and of thine altar, and open the mouths of the heathen to set forth the praise of the idols, and to magnify a fleshly king forever.
So, based off how he's praying, it's letting you know she was raised rightly. Her father and mother instilled the laws in her in history, as well as Mordecai instructed her. That's how she understood this history. That's why she said, from a youth up, I've been told about all of this that has happened to us as a people. Read on.
Verse 11. O Lord, give not thy scepter unto them that be nothing.
You hear what she said? She said, O Lord, give not thy scepter unto them that be nothing. Even our righteous sister understood these other nations are nothing. That's the same mentality our sisters got to have today, because I'm telling you, a lot of our sisters, y'all be looking to the other nations as they have some type of esteem. And that's why you want to do your hair like them. You want to wear the eyelashes, everything that they put on the media. You want to dress like them. You want to look like them. You want to be like them. Not our foremothers. Our foremothers understood they were nothing.
Right.
Read on.
And let them not laugh at our fall, but turn their device upon themselves, and make him an example that hath begun this against us.
Read on.
Remember, O Lord, make thyself known in time of our affliction, and give me boldness, O King of the nations, and Lord of our all power. Give me eloquent speech in my mouth before the lion.
Come on.
Turn his heart to hate him that fighteth against us.
It says, turn his heart to hate him that fighteth against us. Remember, she's praying to the Lord, turn our heart against him, the king, against the one that fighteth against us. Read on.
That there may be an end of him, and of all that are like-minded to him.
Read on.
But deliver us with thine hand, and help me that am desolate, and which have no other helper but thee.
Read.
Thou
so
knowest,
she's praying to the Lord to ask for help, because she knew she had to go before the king and she could be put to death. So she resorted to the Lord. Read on.
Thou knowest all things, O Lord. Thou knowest that I hate the glory of the unrighteous, and abhor the bed of the uncircumcised, and of all the heathen. Thou knowest my necessity, for I abhor the sign of my high estate, which is upon my head in the days wherein I show myself, and that I abhor it as a minstrel's rag.
She said, I abhorred the estate I'm in. I abhorred the right. This was a righteous sister. She feared God and was about to command. She said, I abhorred all the things of the heathen. That there right there lets you know, like I said before, she was raised uprightly. She was raised in understanding that these heathens is not abhorred that. She said, I abhorred all this. I abhorred it like a minstrel's rag. Read on.
And that I wear it not when I am private by myself.
She said, I wear it not when I am private by myself, meaning all the glory and the crown and the queenship and all this. She don't wear it when she by herself because she abhors it. Read on.
Verse 17. And that thine handmaid had not eaten at Amon's table, and that I have not greatly esteemed the king's feast, nor drunk the wine of the drink offerings. Neither had thine handmaid in any joy since the day that I was brought hither to this present. But in thee, O Lord God of Abraham.
She said, I ain't had no joy since I was brought into the presence of the king, but only in thee, O Lord God of Abraham. Read on.
O thou mighty God above all, hear the voice of the forlorn, and deliver us out of the hands of the mischievous, and deliver me out of my fear.
It says deliver us. So she prayed to the Lord for deliverance of her people and to the Lord to strengthen her and to deliver her out of her fear, because her fear was she was going to die. As soon as she came before the king, you was to die. So watch this. Let's go back to Esther, chapter 5.
Chapter 5.
Esther, chapter 5 and verse 1.
The book of Esther, chapter 5 and verse 1.
So now, a decree's been put out. Israel's been put to death. Mordecai, they proclaimed a fast. Mordecai prayed to the Lord. Esther prayed to the Lord. And the nation of Israel fasted for deliverance. Chapter 5, verse 1.
Now it came to pass on the third day that Esther put on her royal apparel.
So now, on the third day, after her fasting, she put on her royal apparel, because you couldn't go before the king in sackcloth and things of that nature. She did that in private. She put on her royal apparel, read.
And stood in the inner court of the king's house, over against the king's house. And the king sat upon his royal throne in the royal house, over against the gate of the house.
Read.
And it was so, when the king saw Esther, the queen, standing in the court, that she obtained favor in his sight.
So I'll just say this. So remember, he has not seen her in 30 days. She hasn't been around the king or in the king's court in 30 days. So now she went to the king's court, and the king seen Esther standing afar off. And remember, Esther was bad. She put on her royal garment, so he seen her, and she found favor in his sight. Read on.
And the king held out to Esther the golden scepter that was in his hand.
So immediately the king held out the golden scepter, which was a hand. So right there, that let her know what? She was good. She wouldn't be killed. So she could come forth. Read on.
So Esther drew near and touched the top of the scepter.
So she drew near and touched the top of the scepter. But watch this. Let's go to rest of Esther, chapter 15. What took place? What happened?
The rest of Esther in the book of the Apocrypha.
15 verse
15
1.
and verse 1. And upon the third day, when she had ended her prayer, she laid away her mourning garments and put on her glorious apparel.
That's those royal apparels that we just read about. Read on.
And being gloriously adorned, after she had called upon God, who is the beholder and savior of all things, she took 2 maids with her.
Read.
And upon the one she leaned, as carrying herself daintily, and the other followed, bearing up her train.
So she leaned on one, carrying herself daintily, and the other followed, holding her trail, meaning she had on a glorious garment. She had on a bad garment, her royal apparel. It had a long tail. Y'all seen in the movies where they be walking and it's a whole long tail and people are holding it. That's what was taking place. Read on.
And she was ruddy through the perfection of her beauty.
So it says she was ruddy through the perfection of her beauty. So, and Bishop touched on it during the Sabbath class when it came to ruddiness and what that word ruddy means. It means she was of a clear brown complexion. Ruddy don't mean red. It means of a clear brown complexion. She was without blemish. Her skin was clear because she was bad. That's why it says in the perfection of her beauty. This right here lets you know she was bad. That's why as soon as the king see her, he's like, damn. He ain't seen her in 30 days either. He's like, damn. Yeah. He immediately held out the gold scepter here. Yeah, and she touched it. Read on.
And she was ruddy through the perfection of her beauty. And her countenance was cheerful and very amiable. But her heart was in anguish for fear.
It says her countenance was cheerful and very amiable. Read on.
Then having passed through all the doors, she stood before the king, who sat upon his royal throne, and was clothed with all his robes of majesty, all glittering with gold and precious stones.
Come on.
And he was very dreadful. Then lifting up his countenance that shone with majesty, he looked very fiercely upon her. And the queen fell down, and was pale and fainted, and bowed herself upon the head of the maid.
So it says she came in. He said he was very dreadful, and when It says, then lifted up his countenance that shone with majesty. He looked very fiercely upon her, and the king fell down and was pale and fainted and bowed herself upon the head of the maid that was before her. Watch this, read on.
Then God changed the spirit of the king into mildness.
So that's what happened. Because remember, you didn't just walk up on the king. Remember, you were supposed to listen to the king's commandment. And the king's commandment was you don't just come unless you're called. So she came up in there, but because he seen her and she had favor in his sight, he went ahead and put his gold scepter out because he knew she could put to death had he not. She touched it. But he still was mad. And that's why he looked at her with fierce anger, and she fell down pale. Because think about it. He's like, what the hell you doing? I didn't call you. But God changed the spirit of the king into mildness. So God changed the spirit of him because he was mad. Read on.
Then God changed the spirit of the king into mildness, who in a fear leaped from his throne and took her in his arms till she
So
came.
now he leaped in her, because remember, she fell down pale and fainted and bowed herself to him. And God changed his spirit, and he leaped from the throne and grabbed her up. Read on.
Till she came to herself again and comforted her with loving words and said
So
unto
now
her.
he grabbed her, put her in her arms, and started comforting her. And y'all know how it be. You know what I'm saying? You done grabbed up your girl, and you sit there, you comforted her, talking smooth sayings to her and stuff like that till she came back to it says, till she came to herself again. Read on.
Verse 9. Esther, what is the matter? I am thy brother. Be of good cheer.
That's what he said. Esther, what's the matter? You know what I'm saying? What's up? What's wrong, baby? What's good? Be of good cheer. Why you upset? Why you fainting? You look mad. Read on. He probably was saying a lot more than that, but read on.
Thou shalt not die. Though our commandment be general, come near.
It says, you're not going to die. Though our commandment be general, come near. Because remember, that was the commandment. You were supposed to die if you came and you wasn't called in the inner court. But he put out the golden scepter and she touched it. So he said, our commandment be general. You're not going to die. I put out the golden scepter, you were touched. You touched it, you shall not die. Come near. Read on.
And so he held up his golden scepter and laid it upon her neck.
So he held up the golden scepter, laid it upon her neck. Read.
And embraced her and said.
And he embraced her. Keep in mind, this is a queen. He embraced her. Read on.
And said, speak unto me. Then said she unto him, I saw thee, my Lord, as an angel of God, and my heart was troubled for fear of thy majesty. For wonderful art thou, Lord, and thy countenance is full of grace.
So remember, she prayed to the Lord that the Lord give her eloquent speech. Now, I know some of y'all sisters might have thought, meaning she'd be able to go boldly and speak properly. This was the eloquent speech that was put in her mouth that she prayed for. Listen to what she said to the king. She come in and she boosted all his confidence. She said, then she said unto him, I saw thee, O Lord, as an angel of God. And my heart was troubled for the fear of thy majesty. I was afraid because you was just your manliness, your majesty. I was in fear because I saw you was like an angel of God. Read on. Verse 14.
Verse 14. For wonderful art thou.
He said, for wonderful art thou. Read on.
Lord, and thy countenance is full of grace.
And thy countenance is full of grace. Listen to what she's saying. Listen to what she's speaking to the king. Read on. This was that eloquent speech. Read on.
And as she was.
That some of you sisters need to learn. Understand that. Some of y'all need to learn this eloquent speech on how to talk to your husbands. Read on.
And as she was speaking, she fell down for faintness.
And as she was speaking, she fell down for faintness. Read on.
Then the king was troubled, and all his servants comforted her.
And all her servants comforted. So let's go back to Esther. Esther. Chapter
5 and 1?
Yeah, chapter 5. But jump down to verse 3.
Book of Esther, chapter 5 and verse 3.
Yeah, we're going to skip around a little bit. We're running out of time. Read on.
Then said the king unto her, What wilt thou, Queen Esther? And what is thy request?
So all that took place. She came before, he beautied her, and she was fainting. She was speaking eloquent to her, and she fainted again. Like, all that took place. So he was concerned. So now he asked, what was your request? Read on.
It shall be even given thee to the half of the kingdom.
It shall be given thee to the half of the kingdom. Why? Because the Lord had changed his spirit for mildness towards her. So now, and plus she was fainting, she was in distress, and he was concerned. So he said, listen, what's your request? What do you want? And whatever it is, I'm going to give it to you. Why? Because because understand what was taking place. He was trying to change her countenance. He was trying to lift her back up. Because remember, he was speaking certain words to her, like, what's going on? You good? She fainted again. She said, Your Majesty and all your glory. I was just, I was perplexed because you was as an angel of God. And then she fainted again. And then the chamberlains came and ministered unto her. So now he's to this point, he's like, listen, what's your request? And whatever it is, it'll be given to you. Watch this, read on.
Verse 4. And Esther answered, If it seem good unto the king, let the king and Haman come this day unto the banquet that I have prepared for him.
It says, so if it seem good to you, let yourself and Haman come to a banquet that I've prepared for you. Read on.
Then the king said, Cause Haman to make haste, that he may do as Esther had said.
So he said, cause Haman to make haste, that he may do as Esther had prepared. Read on.
So the king and Haman came to the banquet that Esther had prepared.
Read.
And the king said unto Esther at the banquet of wine.
So now you got Haman and Esther and the king at the banquet. It's them. They're eating. Read on.
What is thy petition? And it shall be granted thee. And what is thy request? Even to the half of the kingdom it shall be performed.
So the king asks Esther again, what's your petition? What is your request? And unto half of the kingdom it shall be performed. Read.
Then answered Esther and said, My petition and request is, if I have found favor in the sight of the king, and if it please the king to grant my petition and to perform my request, let the king and Haman come to the banquet that I shall prepare for them. And I will do tomorrow as the king had said.
So now she said, hey, y'all come to the banquet that I prepared tomorrow. And it shall be, and it says, and I will do tomorrow as the king hath said. Read on.
Then went Haman forth that day joyful and with a glad heart.
So he was glad, because remember, he was called forth. He don't know what's going on. And now they sitting at the banquet of wine that she prepared and basically said, hey, I prepared a large banquet and everything, and you and Haman come tomorrow, and that's when I will do as the king. It says, and I will do tomorrow as the king hath said. So Haman happy. He go forth, he happy, he joyful, and glad with his heart. Read.
But when Haman saw Mordecai in the king's gate, that he stood not up, nor moved for him, he was full of indignation against Mordecai.
When he saw Mordecai, that he stood and he didn't move, he was mad. All that rage that he had for Mordecai came right back. Jump down to verse 14.
Verse 14. Then said Zeresh.
Verse 13.
Verse 13.
So now Haman went back home to his wife, his children, and told them about everything, how he had riches and how he was made prince second in Persia, and now he's going to a banquet with the king and the queen and all this. Watch this, verse 13.
Verse 13. Yet all this availeth me nothing, so long as I see Mordecai the Jew sitting at the king's gate.
So he said, all that's happened, all the riches that he had, the status he had, it didn't avail him nothing as long as he seen Mordecai still standing at the gate. Understand the indignation and the hatred that Esau has for us. This is showing you right here. He was made second in Persia. He had armies at his disposal. He had riches at his disposal. He had the king's ear to where he could give him counsel in certain things to move the course of the kingdom. But he didn't care about none of that because Mordecai still was living. Mordecai still had breath. Read on.
Then says Zeresh, his wife, and all his friends unto him.
Now watch this. I want y'all to understand something, because a lot of times, and this is even for us today, a lot of times y'all think, oh, Esau, the women ain't like that, or the children. Watch this. Read on.
Let a gallows be made of 50 cubits high. And tomorrow speak thou unto the king that Mordecai may be hanged thereon.
His wife said, hey, listen, tell Mordecai, hey, make a gallows. A gallows is like the little chopping thing, the little thing that they put their head in there, they pull it, and it chops their head off. The gallows. It said, make the gallows be made, big gallows, 50 cubits long. And it says, and tomorrow speak unto the king that Mordecai, I'm sorry, that's a guillotine. The gallows is the things you hang from, and it's basically your own. Y'all have seen them in movies where they're up on a post and they make a big gallows and then they hang you from it. They'll drop the it's a door, and you're up there standing and you have the rope around your neck, and then they'll push the button and the door open and you'll drop and you'll hang. Y'all know what I'm talking about, right?
Yes, sir.
I didn't pull no pictures to see it, but that was a gallows that he was going to be hanged from. He said, have a gallows made, a big gallows, 50 cubits long. But the point is, the wife was on the same page with the hatred for Mordecai. His friends were on the same page with the hatred of Mordecai. And this was for all y'all that think, oh yeah, no, it's not everyone. It's not all of them. Yes, all of them. They all be in cahoots with the destruction of Israel and their hatred towards us as a people. Read on.
Then go thou in merrily with the king unto the banquet.
It says, so kill Mordecai, then go merrily. Go when you get to the king, tell him to have a decree to where you could kill Mordecai, and then you can go in happily to the banquet. Read on.
And the thing pleased Haman, and he caused the gallows to be made.
So it pleased Haman, and he caused the gallows to be made. All right, chapter 6, verse 1.
The book of Esther, chapter 6 and verse 1. On that night could not the king sleep, and he commanded to bring the book of records of the chronicles, and they were read before the king.
So that night the king couldn't sleep, so he commanded the records of the chronicles that they be read before the king. Read on.
And it was found written that Mordecai had told of Bigthana and Teresh, two of the king's chamberlains, the keepers of the door, who sought to lay hand on the king Artaxerxes. And the king said, what honor and dignity hath been done to Mordecai for this? Then said the king's servants that ministered unto him, there is nothing done for him.
There was nothing done for him. So he's reading the book. That's why I said, I'm telling you, the Lord is a mastermind in how he moves, because ultimately that's what's taking place, how things are moved and how things come up, because all that was documented in the chronicles and the books of the kings of what Mordecai did, and then they gave him a job in the court. So now, fast forward, the king's sitting in his bed troubled, so he demands the records to be brought, and he's reading them, and he sees an account of Mordecai and what was done. So he asked the chamberlains and the keepers, basically, what honor and dignity have been done to Mordecai, and they said nothing has been done to him. He hasn't been honored. He hasn't been put in dignified and put in a certain esteem. Read on.
And the king said, who was in the court?
And now the king said, who was in the court? Read.
Now Haman was coming to the outward court of the king's house to speak unto the king to hang Mordecai on the gallows.
That was who in the court. So Haman came to speak to the king to hang Mordecai. Meanwhile, the king just read an account of Mordecai where he should be honored. Read on.
Verse 5. And the king's servant said unto him, behold, Haman standeth in the court. And the king said, let him come in. So Haman came in, and the king said unto him, what shall be done unto the man whom the king delighted to honor? So
keep in mind, Haman came in there, and he's trying to ask the king to hang Mordecai. But as soon as he gets in there, the king's asked him, hey, what should I do to the man? He didn't say who. He just said, what should I do to the man that should be honored, that the king delighteth? Read on.
Now Haman thought in his heart, to whom the king delight to do honor more than to myself.
So Haman thought he was talking about him. He said, now Haman thought in his heart, to whom would the king delight to do honor more than myself? So he's thinking to himself, so who is the king going to honor more than me? Read on.
And Haman answered the king, for the man whom the king delighted to honor, let the royal apparel be brought which the king useth to wear, and the horse that the king rideth upon, and the crown royal which is set upon his head.
So he said, bring this to that man that you want to honor. Bring it says the royal apparel. It says that the king uses to wear. It says the horse that the king rideth upon, and the crown royal that is set upon his head. Read on.
And let this apparel and horse be delivered to the hand of one of the king's most noble princes.
It says, now let it be delivered to the hand of the king's most noble princes. Read.
That they may array the man withal whom the king delighted to honor, and bring him on horseback through the street of the city, and proclaim before him, thus shall it be done to the man whom the king delighted to honor.
It says, thus shall it be done to the king that delighteth the man to honor. Because understand this, Haman thought he was talking about him. That's why he said in his heart, who is the king going to delight more than myself? He ain't going to delight nobody more than myself. So he said, yeah, give him the garment you used to wear, give him your horse and the royal crown, and then also take your most noble prince and parade him through the provinces so everyone may see. Read on.
Verse 10. Then the king said to Haman, make haste, and take the apparel and the horse, as thou hast said, and do even so to Mordecai the Jew. that sitteth at the king's gate, let nothing fail of all that thou
So
hast
now
spoken.
think about Haman. He probably like, what the? His anger probably was even more inflamed. Because now the king said, okay, yeah, all right, everything you just said, all right, go to Mordecai, take him and do that. Mordecai the Jew, take that and do him. Keep in mind, Haman was just coming in there to try to kill, to get Mordecai killed. The Lord flipped it on him. Now he got to pray. Now Mordecai is going to be honored on a horse on everything that he said that he should do. The irony. Read on.
Then took Haman the apparel and the horse, and arrayed Mordecai, and brought him on horseback through the street of the city, and proclaimed before him, thus shall it be done unto the man whom the king delighted to honor.
Watch this, verse 12. Read on.
And Mordecai came again to the king's gate, but Haman hasted to his house mourning, and having his head covered.
He ran home crying, mourning, having his head covered because he was pissed. He was mad. Understand that, because he wanted to kill this man. Listen, he didn't care about nothing on earth except killing Mordecai and the Jews. That's what he had just said before that. That was the only thing on his mind. And that's the same mindset they have today. To the point to where he had to do that, he ran home crying and mourning and covered his head. Read on.
Verse 13.
Matter of fact, let's jump to chapter 7, verse 1.
The book of Esther, chapter 7 and verse 1. So the king and Haman came to
So now they came to the banquet, read.
With Esther the queen. And the king said again unto Esther on the second day at the banquet of wine, what is thy petition, Queen Esther? And it shall be granted thee.
So now they come to the banquet, and he asked, what is your petition? Read on.
And what is thy request? And it shall be performed, even to the half of the kingdom.
Read.
Then Esther the queen answered and said, if I have found favor in thy sight, O king, and if it please the king, let my life be given me at my petition, and my people.
It says, so if I find sight for you, Lord, let my petition be given for my life and for my people at my request. Watch this. Read on.
Verse 4, for we are sold, I and my people, to be destroyed, to be slain, and to perish. But if we have been sold for bondmen and bondwomen, I had held my tongue, although the enemy could not countervail the king's damage.
Watch this. Read on.
Then the king Ahasuerus answered and said unto Esther the queen, who is he?
So who is he that's trying to kill you and your people and make them bondmen and things of that nature? Read on.
And where is he that durst presume in his heart to do so?
Who is he? Where is he that wants to do this? Read on. That wants us to destroy your people and to kill them. Read on.
And Esther said, the adversary and the enemy is this wicked Haman.
The adversary and this enemy is this cracker right here. This wicked Haman. Him sitting right here. Read on.
Then Haman was afraid before the king and queen. And the king, arising from the banquet of wine in his wrath, went into the palace garden. And Haman stood up to make request for his life to
So
Esther.
now the king was mad and went into the palace in the garment. But Haman stood up to make requests. He pleaded to Esther for his life. He started pleading, please, no, help me, save me. Read on.
For he saw that there was evil determined against him by the king.
It says, for he saw that there was evil determined against him by the king. Read.
Then the king returned out of the palace garden to the place of the banquet of wine. And Haman was fallen upon the bed whereon Esther was.
So think about it. He was pleading. You got to think he was probably chasing her around. Please, go to the king. And he was falling on the bed that Esther was on when the king came back in. Read on.
Then said the king, will he force the queen also before me in the house?
He said, dang, you gonna force it? You gonna rape the queen in my house? You gonna force her in my house also? Read on.
As the word went out of the king's mouth, they covered Haman's face.
So as soon as the word went out of the king's mouth, they covered his face. They put that little thing over his head, covered his face. Read on.
And Harbona, one of the chamberlains, said before the king, behold also, the gallows 50 cubits high, which Haman had made for Mordecai, who had spoken good for the king, standeth in the house of Haman.
Come on.
Then the king said, hang him thereon.
So the king said, hang Haman there on the same, and that's the irony. The same gallows that Haman had made to kill Mordecai, he himself was hanged on. Boy, that's some good stuff right there, boy. I tell you, that should make you feel all warm and fuzzy inside. That right there brings joy. That should bring joy. The irony. Here it is. This Negro. Not this Negro. This cracker had made gallows and to kill Mordecai, and he was hanged on those same ones. Boy, I'm telling you, that's good, right? That's good stuff right there. All right, Esther 1 and 8. Let's hurry up.
8 and 1.
8 and 1.
The book of Esther, chapter 8 and verse 1. On
So
that
now
day,
watch this. Matter of fact, let's jump to 8. Jump down to verse 10.
verse 10.
So now, basically, Haman was killed. Esther and Mordecai had basically got with the king to try to have the decrees reversed. And the king was like, once the law goes out, we can't. But they continued to press him about it, so he sent out a decree. Watch this. Read verse 10.
And he wrote in the king Artaxerxes' name, and sealed it with the king's ring, and sent letters by post on horseback, and riders on mules, camels, and young dromedaries.
Read.
Wherein the king granted the Jews which were in every city to gather themselves together, and to stand for their life, to destroy, to slay, and to cause to perish all the power of the people and province that would assault them, both little ones and women, and to take the spoil of them for a prey.
Read.
Upon one day in all the provinces of King Artaxerxes, namely, upon the 13th day of the 12th month, which is in the month Adar.
So now, basically, he put a decree out that the Jews could stand for their life and basically and destroy all those that seek to put them to death. That's basically what was put out. Basically, so that's what happened. We went through, and all those that sought to kill us got put to death. Watch this. Go to Esther 16 real quick. We almost done. Esther 16. This was the decree that was sent out. Esther 16, 1 and 2. Start at verse 1. So when you read Esther the 16th chapter, this was what was sent out by Xerxes. Read.
The book of Esther, chapter 16 and verse 1. The great king Artaxerxes unto the princes and governors of 127 provinces from India unto Ethiopia, and unto all our faithful subjects, greetings.
So this was what was sent out. He sent a decree out. Jump down to verse 10.
Verse 10.
So in that decree, he said this. Watch this. Read.
For Ammon, a Macedonian, the son of Amminadab, being indeed a stranger from the Persian blood.
Meaning he wasn't Persian. He was Esau, and it's going to tell him his nationality in here. He was a Greek. He lived in Macedonia. But when you understand his lineage, it goes all the way back to Amalek. Read on.
And far distant from our goodness, and as a stranger received of us, had so far forth obtained the favor that we show toward every nation, as that he was called our father, and was continually honored of all men, as the next person unto the king.
So Ammon had got status. Read on.
But he, not bearing his great dignity, went about to deprive us of our kingdom and life.
So he said he went about not with great dignity, but Haman set about to deprive us of our kingdom and life. Because understand this, Haman had a whole nother agenda as to why he was moving the way he was moving. Read on.
Verse 13. Having by manifold and cunning deceit sought of us the destruction, as well of Mordecai, who saved
It says,
our life.
having by manifold and cunning deceits sought of us the destruction, talking about his kingdom, Persia, as well of Mordecai, read.
Who saved our life.
Who saved our life, read.
And continually procured our good, as also of blameless Esther, partaker of our kingdom with their whole nation.
And it's also of blameless Esther, partaker of our kingdom with their whole nation. Read on.
For by these means he thought, finding us destitute of friends.
Because by these means, Haman thought, read.
Finding us destitute of friends, to have translated the kingdom of the Persians to the Macedonians.
Because that was Haman's MO the whole time. That's why I remember we read earlier he was mad at Mordecai about what? The 2 eunuchs that Mordecai had basically ousted. Why? Because Haman's whole goal was to translate the kingdom of the Persians to the Macedonians, to the Greeks. He would be what you call a spy. He was an informer. He basically was undercover in the nation of Persia. He was a sleeper cell in the Persian government. And he was trying to translate the kingdom of Persia to the Macedonians. That's why he was mad at Mordecai for killing the having the 2 eunuchs killed and ousted because they was going to kill the king, as well as why he was moving and getting position and power the way he was. Read on.
Verse 15. But we find that the Jews.
Because remember, watch this. Go to Daniel real quick. Daniel 10 and 13, because Bishop brought it out. Because there was all, and this is going to play a part as we get into the Greek captivity. Greece was always trying to maneuver and war with Persia to try to overthrow them. And the same thing that you see take place during the book of Ezra on how Ammon was trying to overthrow, guess what? There was wars taking place in the heaven as well. That's why Daniel 10, read verse 13.
The book of Daniel, chapter 10 and verse 13. But the prince of the kingdom of Persia withstood me 120 days. But lo, Michael, one of the chief princes, came to help me, and I remained there with the kings of Persia.
Now watch this. Jump down to verse 20. So this was what was taking place in the heavens. They were fighting. There was wars because you had one. That's why you read also in Ezra, you have one kingdom against another, one realm against another. So when all these kingdoms are fighting each other, there's fighting taking place in the heaven, which we touched that, and I think in part 4 as well. But jump down to verse 20.
Verse 20. Then said he, Knowest thou wherefore I come unto thee? And now will I return to fight with the prince of Persia. And when I am gone forth, lo, the prince of Grecia shall come.
So he says, look, I go back to fight with the prince of Persia. And lo, when I'm gone, the prince of Grecia shall come. And that's what we're reading an example of how they were warring. Because there was battles taking place. There was warring taking place. During this time, they were trying to push towards the Macedonian empire, the Grecian empire. So here it is. Here's a war tactic. They send Haman. Send Haman. He'll get in good. He'll get in close. He'll rise up. He's doing certain plots to have the kings killed. But guess what? Mordecai was there to stop that. That's why he was mad as hell, as well as he didn't bow to him. So go back to Esther 16, read verse 14 again.
The book of Esther, chapter 16 and verse 14. For by these means he thought, finding us destitute of friends, to have translated the kingdom of the Persians to the Macedonians.
So that was Amon's M.O. So now go to Esther chapter 9. Back to Esther chapter 9. So Haman was killed. A decree was set forth. And us as a nation was saved from destruction by the hands of Mordecai and Esther. Chapter 9 and verse 1. We're going to read 1 to 5, then jump down to verse 17.
The book of Esther, chapter 9 and verse 1. Now in the 12th month, that is, the month Adar, on the 13th day of the same, when the king's commandment and his decree drew near to be put in execution,
Come on.
in the day that the enemies of the Jews hoped to have power over them, though it was turned to the contrary that the Jews had rule over them that hated them,
Read.
the Jews gathered themselves together in their cities throughout all the provinces of the kings Ahasuerus, to lay hand on such as sought their hurt.
Because remember, that was the decree that went out. They were basically, because remember, the king says, I can't reverse the decree that was sent forth, but he sent another decree out basically saying that they can stand up and destroy all those that seek to hurt them. So that's what took place. Read on.
Verse 2, the Jews gathered themselves together in the cities throughout all the provinces of the king Ahasuerus to lay hand on such as sought their hurt. And no man could withstand them, for the fear of them fell upon all them.
No man could withstand them. Why? Because the fear of them will put upon them. No man could withstand the Jews. We went through and smote all those that wanted to do us hurt. Watch this. Jump down to verse 17.
Verse 17. On the 13th day of the month Adar, and on the 14th day of the same rested day, and made it a day of feasting and gladness.
So on the 13th day and the 14th day, they made it a feasting of gladness. This is where you get the feast of Purim. Read on.
But the Jews that were at Shushan assembled together on the 13th day thereof, and on the 14th thereof. And the 15th day of the same they rested, and made it a day of feasting and gladness.
They made it a day of feasting and gladness. Jump down to verse 26.
Verse 26. Wherefore, they called these days Purim after the name of Pur.
After the name of Pur. Read.
Therefore, for all the words of this letter, and of that which they had seen concerning this matter, and which had come unto them,
Read.
the Jews ordained, and took upon them, and upon their seed, and upon all such as joined themselves unto them, so as it should not fail, that they would keep these 2 days according to their writing, and according to their appointed time every year.
So this was decreed throughout all Israel and their seed. That's what it says, and their seed, and on all them. So this was a statute that was put in place. That's why we still celebrate it unto this day, because it was decreed, and it was to celebrate the Lord delivering us from destruction, and us going through, and the Lord showing us favor and destroying those that came against us. And you understand that a lot of these high holy days that have been decreed, like Purim, the day of Nicanor, the feast of dedication. It was for deliverance, the Lord having mercy and destroying our enemies. A lot of times, some of y'all sisters be wanting to make it about presents and gifts, which during Purim, that's the high holy day. You read about gifts being sent back, but it wasn't about gifts being sent. It was to remember and acknowledge the destruction, the Lord having mercy on us and delivering us from our enemies. Read on.
Therefore, for all the words of this letter and of that which they had seen concerning this matter and which had come unto them, the Jews ordained and took upon them and upon their seed and upon all such as joined themselves unto them, so as it should not fail, that they would keep these 2 days according to their writing and according to their appointed time every year.
So now watch this. Go to Esther 16 and jump to verse 19.
The book of Esther, chapter 16 and verse 19.
So now, we've been delivered. The Feast of Purim had been established. As you read in chapter 10, Mordecai was set of high esteem. He was put as, matter of fact, let's get it. Go to 10. Matter of fact, before you get 16, get Esther 10 and 1.
The book of Esther, chapter 10 and verse 1. And the king Artaxerxes laid a tribute upon the land and upon the isles of the sea, and all the acts of his power and of his might, and the declaration of the greatness of Mordecai, whereunto the king advanced him. Are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the Kings
The king
of Media and
advanced
Persia?
him, meaning put him in a prestigious position. Read on.
For Mordecai the Jew was next unto King Artaxerxes.
He was next unto King Artaxerxes. That's what it means. He advanced him. Read on.
And great among the Jews.
And he was great amongst the Jews. Read.
And accepted of the multitude of his brethren, seeking the wealth of his people and speaking peace to all his seed.
So now go to 16.
The book of Esther, chapter 16 and verse 19.
Read on.
Therefore ye shall publish the copy of this
So
letter.
now, what we're reading in the rest of Extra verse 19, this was the letter that Lycomesus had translated. Now he's letting them know in the time of Greece what they should do concerning this. Read on.
Therefore ye shall publish the copy of this letter in all places, that the Jews may freely live after their own laws. And ye shall aid them, that even the same day, being the 13th day of the 12th month of Adar, they may be avenged on them, who in the time of their affliction shall set upon
No, I'm sorry.
them.
This was the letter that was sent out for Artaxerxes. Read on. Of what was supposed to take place for our people during that time, the decree. Basically, it was published that Purim should be kept, and also that the Jews may freely live after their own laws, and they should aid them, meaning the princes in those areas should aid them. Read on.
Verse 21. For Almighty God had turned to joy unto them the day, wherein the chosen people should have perished. Ye shall therefore among your solemn feasts keep it in high day with all feasting.
Read.
That both now and hereafter there may be safety to us, and the well-affected Persians. But to those which do conspire against us, a memorial of destruction.
It says that now both now and hereafter that there may be safety unto us and the well-affected Persians. But to those who do conspire against us, a memorial of destruction. And that's what the Feast of Purim is. It's a memorial of destruction. The destruction of who? Our enemies. Read on.
Therefore, every city and country whatsoever, which shall not do according to these things, shall be destroyed without mercy with fire and sword, and shall be made not only unpassable for men, but also most hateful to wild beasts and fowls.
So that's
forever.
what happened during that time. Once everything was decreed, it says every city that did not do according to these things, they would be destroyed without mercy and fire. So we'll end it right here. All praises be to the Most High God. That is the history of how Purim took place during the Persian captivity. So now after this, we'll go to Ezra 7, and we'll pick up where Ezra, and we should be able to finish with part 6, and that should end the Persian captivity going into Greece. But all praise be to the Most High God. I pray y'all got some understanding out of today's class. Shalom, Israel, Most High in Christ bless.
Most High in Christ bless.